Who are you in conversation with when you need to know something, when you want to feel into something, when you're processing something? Who or what are you in conversation with? And is it all external? If it is all external, those conversations, then how do you know it and how do you trust it? It's because there's an internal conversation that's taking place, right? The internal conversation that we don't really talk about, maybe because we diminish it or we minimize it or we don't recognize the voice or the sense. Almost like we treat it as a backdrop to our lives. There is such an irony in that, that it is plugged in to this bigger conversation, because it's directly connected through our 12 senses. And we live in a world that only concerns itself with 5 of those senses. And they're all external. They're all 5 external senses. Maybe our modern world culture concerns itself with, we could say 6 or 7 if we include the masculine nature of instinct, the animal body that is highly responsive and intelligent. But my take on that is that we tend to flinch, have some fear around that, or try to contain or control it. Or the 7th, the feminine nature of our intuition. And the biggest thing I hear is it's almost portrayed as an empathetic sponge that just gets wrung out and hung out to dry. And so all this, this framing or this perspective of intuition is, again, external. It's the external layer. So we have 5 senses and 2 halves that are part of our common language. And so what I want to dive into with you as an invitation is the languages of listening, how we actually have, that we have a responsibility to these internal conversations, and also how do we listen in and open those listening doorways. It's sort of like a big part of it, I really believe, is that we also have to get away from the constructs of good or bad. So much of the time when we get a response from life in terms of a sign or a symbol or a synchronicity or an intervention, we immediately already have a story that's looped onto that sign or symbol, of what it means and how and when and why. Or maybe we've looked it up. And the way I am holding this is that these signs and symbols are basically a gateway that opens and it draws your attention. And then the second part is, here is the conversation. And then the conversation comes in with that information. And most of the time we see it, and then we're either excited about seeing it or we shut down from seeing it, but we don't actually engage the relationship that we have with the living being or the living piece that is in communication with us in that moment. And that really this river of information can't have good or bad. It's like perfectly placed. And a lot of that is, how we hold it, but it's also really how much we hold ourselves. Like, I'm sure we all have experiences of how presence changes. It changes that. It actually moves it immediately. So keeping this short, I just got off a meeting with the School for Sacred Storytelling, who I've loved for years, with Leah, and meeting some of the other 14 teachers for the next year. We're all teaching a month-long course. There's also going to be free masterclasses for the summit. I'll share more here and how you can come on in. And I hope that you're having a good day, dusk or dawn, wherever you are.